This is Colorado Anime Fest 2018. We're here with Joel McDonald and our press outlet here.
Hi, I'm here from NerdFeed. Thank you for joining us. And what were your guys' names?
We're here. We're part of the crew. We're part of Colorado Anime Fest's internal media team.
Introduce yourselves.
My name is Maris.
I'm Billy.
All right, so we're
Nice
going to
to
go
meet you.
round robin style asking you questions. Did you guys want to go first or?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so my first question for you, Joel, is how did this all start? How did you end up getting into this career that you're in now?
So I'm one of very few people that was lucky enough to be very aware of what they wanted to do, like almost immediately. So
Like
I was I think 4 years old when I figured out acting was a thing, and then I was 7 years old when I was like, that's what I'm doing, and I never changed my mind. And it started like in like kindergarten, first grade, when like you're all going around and be like, what do you want to do when you grow up, or whatever, and like the kid would be like, I want to be a fireman, and then the next one would be like, I want to be a police officer, and I want to do this, whatever, and every single time I'd be like, I want to do that, I want to do that. I want to do that one. No. And so, like, eventually I was like, no, there's a whole deal where you can just kind of pretend to do those things. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a smart man. But one thing that I've always been fascinated by is stories and telling stories and how people interact with each other and how people communicate feelings to one another. And that's one thing that I kind of latched onto early on, and I started doing plays through church at first, and then elementary school kind of productions.
Mm-hmm.
I just like the really bare, the Hickory Dickory Dock was one of my first really main roles. And
I was the keeper.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah. But yeah, so like I stuck with it forever, and I've known it for 30 years, and I'm like, okay. So like but every actor will tell you, like, they're always learning, they're always trying to figure something else out, trying to do a different thing, and branch out and expand as artists and performers, and that's what I've always wanted to do. And it's amazing to me that people will give you dollar bills to do it. It's awesome.
Dollar bills to play pretend.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and I'll tell people like all the time. Like I teach acting workshops, and whenever I do conventions, and I just taught kind of a intro to auditioning workshop, and I'll be doing voice actor auditions tomorrow.
Yep.
But I always tell people like it's about kind of reaching inside, finding emotions to connect to, and then sharing them with someone else, and it's just the most real and natural and human thing you can do, and I love it, and it excites me, and it still does, and it's cool.
That's good to hear. It's always good to be passionate about your career.
Yeah.
Was there any one specific catalyst that kind of directed you toward voice acting, or was that kind of something that you just sort of stumbled across?
The latter one. Because I when I was in my early to mid 20s, I just got into Dallas, and I was doing gig work, and so I didn't have a regular job for the first 3-4 years I was in town.
Yeah.
So I was building sets, hanging lights, doing rigging, but everything just so I could stay available for auditions and do theater and have an agent and do commercial work and whatever, and just trying to. All I wanted was to be able to pay my bills by acting. Mm-hmm. But when you're in your early mid 20s, whatever, there's kind of a virtue to poverty. We're like, where it's just like, I
feel you.
I got nothing, and I'm doing what I love, and that's enough. And like, but as you get older, you're like, no, I got to pay the gas bill this month. I'm really cold. And so, I just kind of, I was always kind of branching out and trying to try new things. But through theater, I met some amazing voice actors, Colleen Klinkenbeard, Laura Bailey, Travis Willingham, and through meeting them, they kind of helped me get into Funimation auditions and try out through that. And my first roles were in Desert Punk, which Zach Bolton directed, and he was awesome. But I was terrible. I was awful. I was so bad at voice acting. I could act, and I was acting constantly on stage, but I couldn't voice act for crap. And so, they needed a director to bring on at one point, and they didn't want to take an established voice actor, and take Tatum out of the booth and put Tatum in a director's chair and take that voice out of the microphone. And so we need someone who understands acting and directing and can talk to actors and all that. And so, but isn't a great loss, if they're taken out of the booth.
So you're like, oh, maybe.
And so they brought me in really as a trial basis, and they were like, we'll give you a show and see how it goes. And then that lasted for 11 years. So that was cool. And I just recently moved I'm now at Gearbox Software. I'm a voice director for them, so doing some video game stuff. Same basic idea, but I don't have to match flaps, which is very nice. But yeah.
All right. My next question for you is: you've voiced several characters up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Who so far has been your favorite character to give a voice to, and why?
One of my favorite characters to voice was Takumi from Initial D, because he was so laid back. He was so close to my regular voice. He never yelled. Like, it wasn't like too. It got intense from time to time, but like, you know, I directed One Piece for a long time, and One Piece is great, but One Piece is loud, and so everyone's like yelling constantly. Poor Sonny Strait, who plays Usopp, is like constantly screaming, but Takumi was so laid back and just really chill and just like, hey, I just want to get better at driving. What's wrong? But he was my favorite because he was the easiest to voice, and he had so many fun emotional places to play in. But my favorite recently has been Meow in Space Dandy.
Okay.
Because... yeah.
I'm not a space cat.
Yeah, I love him so much. And okay, so Bebop and Shampoo and Danny, just some of my favorite series ever. And like getting to play in a Watanabe series was one of the most epic things in my life. It was awesome, and to do it with one of my best friends, Ian Sinclair, and work with such a great group. It was awesome. But right after it was over, it was like, man, I really hope we get that Cowboy Bebop movie. Like, that it came out years after the 2 seasons of Bebop, and then it's just like, oh, that was epic. I want that. And it's never been mentioned. I want it so bad. I miss that guy. I miss playing with my friends. And it's a great show. It's one of those that I would rush out and buy if I wasn't involved in. I loved that one. It was great. Yeah.
So one of your most recent roles was Peachy in Yuri on Ice.
Yep.
Did you think that was going to blow up into the kind of the cultural phenomenon that it became?
You know, honestly, we never know, and it just probably Japan doesn't know, you know, and it's I'm sure Funimation and other dubbing companies do a really great job of kind of paying attention to what's popular in Japan. Yeah. But that doesn't always translate to the States, you know, and there are some you know kind of outliers like, you know, Attack on Titan and Yuri on Ice and others that it's just like, wow, that was a huge thing over there, it's a huge thing over here. But sometimes it's like it's massive over there, and then over here it's and then or the exact
the
opposite, you know, and it's like you never know what's going to hit because they're very different cultures. I just got to go last year to Japan for my the first time. I'd never been before, and I got to go in at mid-June, and it was awesome. And it was great because there was One Piece everywhere. Like there was Luffy like on a Honda dealership. Like it was so cool. But it's so much a part of the culture. And over there, Seiyu, the voice actors they're A-list celebrities. Yep. And so when I would tell people like, you know, ego de Seiyu desu, they'd be like, oh, so you're like a big deal. I'm like, no, you have no idea how wrong you are. Like I'm the opposite of that. But yeah, I love kind of seeing. I've always kind of equated dubbing to like how Shakespeare's translated into all these different languages. You know, like it's not a different story; it's the same story, but it's a way to get other people involved and to tell that same story elsewhere. And so I've worked on some comedies, some goofy ones, and some drama and all that. But one thing I really love is just like, I love this story. I love that. I want to tell you that too. My mom actually told a friend of hers once that she was like, my son makes Japanese cartoons for people who can't read. And I thought that was awesome. I really did. Because, and I don't care. Watch the subtitles, watch the dub, whatever. As long as you're enjoying it, it's the story. And if it's a good dub, then it tells you the same story as the Japanese. And,
it's interesting to turn them on, though, and see, like, how it's been translated and then how it's been directed for English and the different
and especially, like, in comedies, because, like, some of my favorite shows that I've worked on were Sgt. Frog and Binbo Gamiga, which I think was released as Good Luck Girl, that Funimation did, and even Yuri on Ice, just a lot of these shows, and Italia, comic stuff doesn't translate. And no one who speaks 2 languages will tell you that you can take a joke and just move it over and it still works. Like, it doesn't. And so, and then one of the things you need for comedy is the unexpected. And so if you've already seen the Japanese and you know what the joke is, if you hear it in English, you're not still going to laugh. Like, it's not still funny anymore. It's lost that deal. And so Sgt. Frog was fun because, and like Shin-Chan, which I didn't direct, but the Japanese production company in both those shows were like, to a certain extent, differing for each, was like, just make it funny. Like, it was funny in Japanese, make it funny in English, go. And that was awesome, because like it was like, there's a joke here, we need to put a joke here. Okay, this joke is about White Day. So like we
Yeah.
can either like make the same joke about White Day and have like a translation little scrolling thing at the bottom explaining to an
What
American
White
audience
Day
why
is.
it's funny, and that's just a joke you have to explain is not a funny joke.
Yeah.
And so or we could put something new in there. And so some of it worked, some of it didn't. But like the Japanese production company was great about letting us play and working with us. I was told there was during Shinchan there was a period of time where a producer had to be on a phone call with a Japanese licensor explaining to him what a douchebag was and why it was funny to an American audience. I was like, man, I wish I'd been here for that. But yeah.
My next question for you is, you've done directing, you've done script writing, you've done voice acting. Between all of those things that you do, what is it that you find most enjoyable, and what do you think you can see yourself doing the most in the future?
Man, I'll tell you, that's it's tough. I've done. I've been lucky enough to do a lot of different parts of the industry, and right now I'm actually working on Hunter x Hunter on Toonami as the writer. And writing, I think, is the most difficult part of the creative process that allows anime to happen, or dubbed anime to happen. Because you have to tell the same story, but you have to do it in a very specific timing. You have to match the mouth movements, sometimes to a greater degree than the Japanese are really particular about. Like it's gotten better as time has gone on. But like in some older anime, like you'll notice that the audio doesn't always line up with the mouth, but Americans have always been very particular about that. And so being able to tell that exact same story with the same nuance if possible, but still matching that very specific timing is incredibly difficult. And it starts with the writer. And a bad script is something that everyone in the process has to work against the rest of the time. But a good script just allows everyone to do what they do naturally, and everything develops into what should be a very accurate representation of what the original property was.
Like swimming downstream.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was, and John Bergmeyer, the lead writer for Funimation, he actually said something a long time ago that I really enjoyed, which was, making a good dub is one thing, but making good television is something different. And so at Funimation, when I was there, everyone was always striving to make good television. Not only an accurate representation of the original story, but something that made as much sense emotionally and in context to an American audience as it did to the original Japanese audience. And so that does require some changes in localization and all that kind of stuff. And I know some of that stuff gets hairy when you get into the weeds of where does it go too far. But it's so many people got into anime because of Sailor Moon and Space Dandy and Dragon Ball, and without knowing it was anime. And that's what's important, is like if it's done well, like it doesn't matter where it came from, like it's universal, like it makes as much of an emotional impact on me as it does to the person who watched it 10 years ago when it first aired in a different country. But when it's done well, it can be really, really glorious. And like you can have two people that don't speak the same language talk about the same episode and have had the same experience. And that's awesome. That's really, really fun.
So it's the script writing, you'd say that's your favorite?
I think when it works, the script writing is my favorite part, because it's a challenge, and sometimes it's a challenge that you're like, look, I did my best. Like I wrote for Claymore, which was an awesome series about some really boss chicks, but there was a monologue I had to write at one point, and the monologue was beautiful in the Japanese. Even the direct translation was just glorious, and it was my sisters, we must band together and defeat the incoming forces. Augment the boundaries of the outer walls, take up arms, and da-da-da. And it was just this rousing, inspirational kind of thing. But then when I get to the animation, the flaps are going blap, blap, blap. Like it was just, and so like I did the best I could, but it was like, girls, fight! Rah! Like, and eventually we decided, we're like, it's more important that we get that feeling across than we match the animation. And so there are always concessions to be made. But writing's fun. Hunter x Hunter has been a blast to write, and continues to be. But yeah, actors are always going to love what they do because they're getting paid to pretend to be other people. And whatever the constraints are, it doesn't matter. It's just fun to do.
So on the bad days, it's the voice acting.
On the bad days, it's the voice acting. As a director, it's always fun because basically your job is to get talented people to be talented, and like if they do good, you look good. Like you kind of pretend you know what you're doing. It's great.
So if directing has pressure increased with simulcast coming up, more often with animes?
Yeah. So, like I said, I left Funimation about a month ago, and I've been at Gearbox ever since. But when I was still there, broadcast up season is always ramping up. And one of the jokes at Funimation was, we shouldn't call these seasons because seasons end. But as the pace of anime in Japan has ramped up, the pace of dubbing in America has ramped up, and Funimation's partnership with Crunchyroll, giving each other access to each other's catalogs, has really made it's helped to bring down the cost of anime, and it makes it more accessible. And as it's becoming more popular, it's more possible to produce it in a larger capacity. And so Funimation is always, right now, is working on, I'm sure, more than a dozen shows. And it's so the pace does pick up, but they've been great about keeping people involved in the process that are knowledgeable and experienced and are able to kind of pick up on the nuance of each different series really, really well. And like you'll see directors like Chris George, Kyle Phillips, Felicia Angel, some of the best directors, Tia Ballard, and some great directors to Funimation, and they'll jump from a comedy to a drama to a sports anime to a harem show to all these different things, and you can't tell who directed them because they're so accurate to the original material. They're great, and so these directors are like VO chameleons. Like whatever style you want them to match, they can do it. They're just some of the most talented people in the industry, and yeah, that's hands down. I won't apologize for it.
Which project with be it directing, screenwriting, or voice acting, with everything you've done, what are you most proud of?
Oh man.
Or you pick just one?
Yeah, it really is, because directors and engineers and actors don't always get to pick the properties they work on, but everybody finds something to love about that show. And so even if it's not something you'd rush out and buy yourself, like you find something to care about and to make it compelling and everything. So that being said, I love all my babies, but my favorite babies, Space Dandy, I still go back and watch it constantly. Sgt Frog, writing Hunter x Hunter has been a thrill for me because it's 148 episodes plus 2 movies, and so far I've written all of it, and I don't know if that's unheard of, but it feels unheard of. I'm very proud of it.
You're not used to this committed relationship.
No, it's very true. I mean, like in the actor world, it used to be when I was doing a lot of theater, it was like an 8-week commitment. I'd like date a girl for 3 weeks, break up, have a horrible last 2 shows, and then be done. But like anime is forever, guys. Like it's crazy.
So it looks like we have time for one more question.
Sweet.
And I want to talk about Panty and Stocking.
Oh, good.
What was that like, approaching a Japanese show that's filtered through a very American lens?
Yeah. So Jamie Markey wrote the bulk of the series, if not all of it, and Jamie Markey is one of my favorite writers of all time. So Japan doesn't swear the same way America does.
Yeah.
It's not. They're even when they're rude, they're polite. Like at least by American standards, and so they were dirty in their own way.
Yeah.
But when it came to Funimation to dub it, and especially for Jamie to write, and Jamie was the perfect choice. Like if you know her, you know what I'm talking about. But they told her apparently, and I wasn't in on this conversation, but apparently they communicated to Jamie through Funimation, we don't understand American law as far as vulgarity, and we don't want you to get arrested. But we would love it if you were investigated. So please push the boundaries of what your country would federally allow. And so she did, and she ran as far as, and it was never a problem because like the bar is pretty high. But she was like coming up with like just some of the most creative swearing in the world.
Oh,
I
and
loved it.
It was glorious too.
Yeah, it was great.
Show.
So yeah, and it was really fun. There was also Panty and Stocking was the only show that I worked on at Funimation where I nearly blacked out and hit the floor in the booth. And almost all voice actors have a story of like passing out because of just a total lack of oxygen. That was mine. Panty and Stocking nearly killed me.
Just all the screaming?
Screaming, yelling, whining, nosebleeds, the whole time. But it was a lot of fun. I miss it. That's another one I'd love to see continue. And
that would be great.
I've seen some hints, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I do actually have one more question, but it's a quick one.
Let's do it.
Yep.
I saw that you're an Oreo fanatic. What is the right way to eat an Oreo?
Okay.
As an Oreo fanatic.
All right, so this, and I know this is gonna lose me some fans, but I feel strongly about this. Okay, so single stuff Oreos are crap. Like that's just
You gotta get
that's
double
fact.
stuffed or
Yeah, it's
love
like
it.
2% milk. Like, come on,
Yeah.
crap will get off the pot. So double stuffed Oreos, first thing. Then take that, twist off. You get the clean cookie on one side, all the stuffing on the other side. You do that with 2. You put it together, quadruple stuff, dunk for like 12 to 14 seconds. It's just barely gonna fall. Anyway, like that's.
See, I always like, unless I have milk, if I have milk, I'll just dunk them in the milk. But otherwise, I break them apart and then I scrape the frosting off of the one side and then eat the cookie pieces first and the frosting.
You know, I respect that. As long as you have a process you stand by, then it's no, it's.
But I think I want to try yours now. It's best of both worlds.
It's true. I'm a fan.
All right, that was my
All right.
last question. Thank you for letting me
Yep,
squeeze
and I
it
think
in.
we're out of time, so we'll wrap it up now. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
And thanks for tuning in, everybody. Bye.